Tuesday night.
This lunatic raped my little girl.
Now he's going to answer for it.
I reckon I want him hanged.
One man's brutal mistake could collapse an evil empire.
Something like this could destroy us completely.
It'll take more than that to stop the clan.
I need to hear everything that happened.
We can't believe a single thing she might have said.
And only Clell Henry can defend a woman's lost dignity.
Maybe there was nothing there to lose.
Against the best lawyers the clan's money can buy.
Relax, son. This won't take long.
Stevenson's going to chew you up.
If I fall, they all fall.
Cross the Fire, Tuesday, 8:30 on Channel 8.
Years ago, the announcement of a multi-million-dollar industrial development would have been embraced enthusiastically and without question. There would have been no environmental impact study, no public debate, and virtually no opposition to what would have been seen as an economic godsend. Those were the days when economic development was prized above all else. The days when governments went to extraordinary lengths to attract new industries to their states, and a time when the environment was a topic of little interest to most South Australians. But today, things are different. Today, the environment rivals the economy as the nation's key political issue, and now more than ever before, industry is under pressure to clean up its act. Since the late 1950s, Apcel has grown and prospered in the southeast, but that prosperity has come at a price. The environment has paid dearly for the economic development of the area, and in this case, it's Lake Bonney that's paid the high price of progress.
I think it's a mistake that perhaps we can all learn from, Andrew. I'm sure there are enough intelligent people around to make sure that, when a lot of us have got old and have left, that they'll continue on to see it return to where it should be. What's happened in the past will not be allowed to happen in the future. And the sooner the industrial companies and all over the world realise this, the better life will be for all of us.
Neville Bonney, botanist, conservationist, environmentalist, a man with a finely tuned appreciation of nature's delicate balance. He's been coming here since he was a boy, a time when Lake Bonney was a natural wonderland.
It was not clear in the sense how we would term, rainwater, because a lot of the water that came into the lake was of a brackish nature. But it was, yes, it was drinkable, although we used to drink too much of it. So yes, it was cleaner, and it just had that wonderful feel about it, and not much different to this morning, which is a beautiful light, and so still. There was a lot of land birds along the fringes, such as the wrens, and we also have a rare bird here called the striated field wren as well, but mainly ducks, many varieties, swans, Japanese snipe, and many of the migratory birds on their way from Siberia migrate on the way to Coorong, use it as a stopping off point.
The Lake Bonney of 30 years ago was a very different place from the Lake Bonney of today.
The bird life was here in abundance, ducks, swans, fish, you know, the lake itself, well, not dirty like it is now. It was quite clean. Horses used to drink the water and that type of thing, where they won't touch it today.
Ernie Allen, a local fisherman with a lifetime of experience and a newfound concern for the environment. He grew up with Lake Bonney and has seen its tragic transformation.
We used to catch mullet. It was, I guess, like a jack salmon. We used to catch them in a 4-inch net. You don't catch those here anymore. The natural fish, it was like the redfin, they weren't perhaps commercial fishery type thing, but they were there and we used to catch them. And I mean, I wouldn't eat a fish out of it now.
The reason why Ernie Allen won't eat fish from the lake is simple. For more than 3 decades, the lake has been a giant settling pond for billions of litres of industrial effluent. But to understand how that came about, you must wind the clock back to the 1950s. The demise of Lake Bonney really started back in 1958, when an attempt to lower the lake by about 30 centimetres misfired with devastating results. The scouring action of the water rushing from the lake into the sea widened an initially narrow channel to more than 100 metres. And within 2 weeks, the water level had dropped by more than 2 metres, reducing the size of the lake by about a third.
Well, that was another little engineering, we'll call it mistake, because they'd planned to only open about 2 to 3 metres. And of course, in calcareous sand dunes, the sides kept falling in, and within a week or so, it was from 6 feet, it went to about 200 metres. And there was a tremendous volume of stuff that went out then. Now, if we talk, and trees were tearing out, trees, mind you, were being ripped out through the sand dunes, little trunks like that into the ocean. Now, if we talked about environmental things happening in the ocean, well, that was the time when there could have been some pretty dangerous little things that would have happened.
In that same year, the South Australian government, desperate to entice new industries to the state, passed a remarkable piece of legislation known as the Pulp and Paper Mills Agreement. The agreement, which was updated in 1964, gave Apcel and its close neighbour Cellulose a 50-year mandate to discharge untreated industrial effluent into Lake Bonney. The impact on the lake was devastating, and while there were murmurs of dissent from an enlightened few, the wider community remained unconcerned about the lake's demise.
In that time, I mean, environment and conservation was, this wasn't talked about. I mean, it was a word we were still looking in the dictionary to see what it meant. So, I mean, there's lots of happened. I remember when we first started getting involved in those issues, or even mentioning it to friends, you had to be careful what you said and how you said it, because they really did think that perhaps you were not quite with it. Which we're not.
But with the increasing awareness of environmental issues and growing concerns over the condition of the lake, pressure has been mounting on the government and the company to clean up Lake Bonney. The release of polluted lake water into crayfish breeding grounds off the coast last year put the Lake Bonney debate back in the political spotlight.
Lake Bonney will be cleaned up. Now, exactly how and over what time scale, I'm not able to say so at this moment.
Dozens of angry fishermen confronted the South Australian Premier, Mr John Bannon, demanding government assurances that the discharge would not destroy their industry. High-profile environmental group Greenpeace then stepped in, taking direct action, closing off the outlet and fueling speculation about the damage being caused by the discharge. Throughout the controversy, Apcel has been portrayed as a greedy multinational, plundering the environment for the sake of corporate profits. But it now appears the tables have turned. Now, in an ironic twist, it's the polluters, not the protesters, who've come up with a master plan which they claim will help bring Lake Bonney back to life.
Not bad out here, eh? It's all right. Mind you, we earned it. Oh, yeah, I reckon, yeah. No, I mean, we, us, the human race, earned it. Why do you think we are the dominant species on this planet?
Brains?
Yeah, you see, we humans were the first to get out of the primeval swamp.
Yeah. I mean, look at your fish.
They just give up.
Yeah. They could have grown legs.
They could have grown legs and crawled out onto the land like we did. But what did they do?
Chucked in the towel, mate.
They just turned around and headed straight back into the swamp.
Couldn't keep up with us humans. We're too smart for them.
That's why we're on this end of the fishing line.
And they're on that end of the fishing line.
Too smart for them.
Any bites?
Not as yet.
I just want to say again that this project really, when you tie it all together, the economic aspects of it, the opportunities for increased employment, the development of a new industry in the southeast, the side benefits which come from the increasing scale of operation which allows us to install a complete chemical recovery system that will lead to a huge improvement in the condition of Lake Bonney, really is a very, very good news story.
Apcel's $180 million redevelopment project was launched in an atmosphere of optimism and environmental concern. In one swift move, Apcel sought to shrug off 3 decades of criticism and adverse publicity, predicting dramatic improvements in the quality of its effluent and in the condition of Lake Bonney.
This is really, really good news, and I don't want to focus on the negative things about our effluent. What I want to focus on are the very positive things that are going to result as a consequence of the project.
In fact, as evidence of its commitment to addressing current environmental problems, Apcel revealed that half the project's cost, a massive $90 million, would be spent on environmental measures alone. This is what Apcel plans to spend $90 million fixing up. Every day, 35 megalitres of industrial effluent is discharged from the Apcel site into this drain. That's 35,000 tonnes of waste flowing directly into Lake Bonney. The effluent is made up of waste from the mill's pulping process. It's this highly coloured effluent that gives Lake Bonney its unattractive brown colour. And it's the colour of the lake, rather than the toxicity of the water, that's dramatically changed the lake's ecology.
Ecologically, the lake is, it has got a reasonable community present there, although it may be reduced by the very high colour that actually exists in the lake itself. All the requirements of a natural system are there. It has got some phytoplankton, which are the small plants which grow in the water. It has got some larger plants growing on the side of the lake itself. And it also has a group of consumers, those animals which feed on the algae and the plants. It also has predators present there. And so the makings of a reasonable food chain still exist in the lake. It is not dead. The system may have a problem in terms of that the production in the lake is low because of the high colour.
However, it's not the colour that's the major concern of environmental groups and fishermen. They're deeply troubled by the presence of organochlorines in the effluent, a byproduct of Apcel's chlorine bleaching process. Organochlorines have been detected in the main drain near Apcel and in the lake itself. According to official tests, the concentration in the drain was as high as 49,000 parts per billion, while the level in the lake was recorded at around 1,880 parts per billion. Now, if you listen to the environmentalists, those levels of organochlorines are a grave threat. But talk to Apcel and the government authorities and they'll tell you that there's no proof that those concentrations are a concern. But if this new project goes ahead, the whole debate over organochlorides in Lake Bonney could become irrelevant. Apcel plans to undertake the project in 2 phases. In the first phase, it would construct a new chemical pulp mill and chemical recovery system on grazing land next to its existing mill. The second phase would involve converting Apcel's existing chemical pine pulp mill to produce eucalyptus pulp, and then the installation of a secondary treatment plant. The whole project will take 6 years to complete, but Apcel says it's phase 1 that will deliver the bulk of the environmental improvements.
Well, we expect 90% of our stated improvements to be made at this stage. This is in late 1992. Obviously, we'll have no chlorine bleaching on site at this point in time, which eliminates the presence of organochlorines originating from the pulp bleaching process. The fact that we'll be using the spent sulphite liquor as boiler fuel in our recovery boiler will obviously improve the high organic load that we see in the main drain at the moment to Lake Bonney.
Organochlorines will be eliminated from the effluent by replacing chlorine bleaching with another process known as hydrogen peroxide steep bleaching. Apcel already has an $8 million steep bleaching plant in operation, which it says will reduce the output of organochlorines by about 60%. The greatest fear of organochlorines centres around dioxins, the most toxic organochlorines and among the most toxic substances ever identified. But Apcel maintains that in its case, dioxins are not an issue.
Dioxins have not been detected in the Apcel effluent, even when we were chlorine bleaching. That seems to be a bit of a quirk with the sulphite pulping process. But with the elimination of chlorine off-site, obviously dioxins, which can be generated from chlorine bleaching, don't become an issue at all.
But according to Apcel's EIS, dioxins were found in the main drain, but in quantities which the authorities say were of questionable significance. The organochlorine level in the drain was put at around 49,000 parts per billion, while the dioxins detected in the effluent were in concentrations of up to 47 parts per quadrillion, a figure the government says is of no proven danger. Through the elimination of chlorine bleaching and the recovery of chemicals used in the pulping process, Apcel forecasts a massive improvement in the quality of its effluent. On the left is the effluent currently being poured into the lake, and on the right is what Apcel predicts will be the effluent in 1995. Those claims are backed up by figures from the Apcel EIS, which show the colour will improve by 80%, organochlorines will be virtually eliminated, and after 1997, the effluent would be completely non-toxic to aquatic life. But still many people remain unconvinced, saying that a $1 million environmental impact statement commissioned by Apcel is hardly likely to undermine the justification for the project. In the past, there have been some broad criticisms of environmental impact statements. Now, how satisfied are you that this particular EIS does give a true indication of how this development is going to impact on the area?
We're very pleased with the final document. We're very pleased with the way that King Hill engineers in Adelaide have gone about assembling this document. The document itself is not to be an advocacy document for the project that is clearly set out in the guidelines. It's to be technically very sound.
You've said that the EIS won't be an advocacy document for the project, yet it does seem to focus on the positive aspects of the development. Now, would that be a valid observation?
Oh, I think it's quite a valid observation. We think this is quite a positive project.
Looking at the document, I was hard-pressed to find anything negative about the project. Now, are there going to be any negative impacts?
Well, we don't believe there are any negative impacts at this stage, and I think if there are, if people have got some concerns, these will obviously be raised during the 8-week public scrutinisation period.
One aspect of the project that's already come under close scrutiny is the timing for the construction of the secondary treatment plant. Although Phase 1 and the first part of Phase 2 will be completed in late 1992, the secondary treatment plant is not scheduled to begin operations until 4 years later in 1996.
there are good technical reasons and I guess practical reasons why we are looking at a delay until 1996 of the secondary treatment. Secondary treatment is virtually a polishing process. As I stated before, the majority of the gains that are going to be made or improvements in our effluent will be achieved by the installation of chemicals recovery and the elimination of chlorine bleaching. We'll have two projects virtually on the go at the same time. To tackle secondary treatment at that point in time, it just probably put a little bit of added load on our resources, and we feel because we're making 90% of the improvement with those two aspects of the project that we feel fairly comfortable in delaying the secondary treatment through to around about 1996.
But while Apcel is comfortable with the timing of secondary treatment, Greenpeace is not. Greenpeace has criticised the delayed installation of the plant and claims the company has ensured environmental gains have been tied to increased productivity. The project will have direct benefits to the environment, but the advantages to Apcel from a financial and corporate viewpoint are crucial.
Well, we're very conscious of our position in the community. We're also very conscious of the past, whereby for the considerations at the time, the balance between economic considerations and environmental considerations enabled us to start up under an indenture where effectively the state government took responsibility for our effluent. And we believe in this day and age community attitudes have changed, and we've got to change with those attitudes too. And we're very keen for this project to go ahead so that we can improve our position economically as well as in the community.
Apcel's new openness is a dramatic turnaround for the company, which for 30 years has kept its operations under wraps. It's a change that Apcel concedes has been prompted by a combination of public pressure and self-interest.
Apcel's been under fire for perhaps the last 20 years over the condition of Lake Bonney. In the past, the company has been largely satisfied to point to the indentures and say that the government's responsible. Yet now you're prepared to spend $90 million on environmental measures. Now, why the change?
The fact is the indentures were always there, and to expect Apcel to be in a position to suddenly turn around and invest many millions of dollars, I mean, you can see from the size of this project what we're talking about is a multi-million-dollar solution. It really has to go as a package. It's got to the stage where we are also at the limit of our pulping capacity on site. It can be now put together as a total package that provides economic benefits to ourselves and the broader community, but basically this whole package has to go together and have a return for the organisation, as well as providing the opportunity to address the environmental issues.
Looking at the project, you're spending $90 million on environmental measures. Now, could that be seen as a trade-off for getting $90 million of economic development to maintain the financial viability of the operation?
Well, really the whole thing has to go together. It talks about a scale of operation. There has to be some economic return. Really, if you look at the current climate and the cost of money, I mean, this package fits together well in terms of it addressing the community needs for the environment as well as our needs in terms of economic return.
The economic advantages to Apcel are basically twofold. Firstly, the company will save millions of dollars through replacing imported eucalyptus pulp. And secondly, it will increase its overall pulping capacity by nearly 60%, with the potential to increase even further. But the importance of the project to Apcel is not measured purely in economics.
The fact is, we have an indenture that goes to the year 2014. I think it would be foolhardy of us to allow things to go to the year 2014. I don't think the position with Lake Bonney at the moment, while it might be legally defendable, I think in the current, against current community standards, there's a need for us to move with the times. It might be that social pressures, or it could even be political expediency. I mean, we've had no indication of any of those sort of things, but all those things we'll be vulnerable to.
Apcel predicts the redevelopment will help create 400 jobs, provide a market for commercial eucalyptus plantations, and push its economic contribution to the region up to nearly $196 million a year. But the value of the project will also be assessed on environmental grounds.
Ethan tangles with the town's troublemaker. A man is shot down in cold blood.
I don't believe it. Get this!
Everyone looks to the resident gunslinger with gratitude.
Gunfighters are always getting blamed for deaths they didn't cause.
And while you take all the credit, no one's looking for the real killer.
I didn't do it, Charlie. Who did? It's important we find out who's responsible.
As your friend, I'm telling you.
Lee Horsley, Secret Thornton, Paradise, 7:30 Wednesday on Channel 8.
The success or otherwise of the redevelopment will be assessed largely on whether it delivers the promised improvements to Lake Bonney. Research has shown that despite its treatment, the lake remains resilient and continues to support a living, albeit severely diminished ecosystem. And experts believe that cleaner effluent could provide the lake with a chance to recover from past abuses.
I would argue that it's not dead. It has got the potential of being quite a living system. It is still a living system. Whether it could be better is the question, and I suspect the answer to that is yes, it could be.
Some of the locals are not so optimistic. They say the years of pollution have taken a heavy toll on the lake, and that the rejuvenation of the lake, if it ever occurs, could be a lifetime away.
Well, I won't see it, not in my time. And I doubt very much when my children will see it in their time. I believe the only way they could ever clean it up is run the whole lake through a treatment works.
For Neville Bonney, the true argument about the project doesn't lie in the facts and figures of the EIS, nor in the prognosis for the lake's recovery. He says Lake Bonney provides a lesson for us all, a lesson that industry must learn to coexist with the environment to find a compromise between preservation and prosperity, and to maintain that delicate balance.
Perhaps we should put a bit more price on quality of life more than the almighty dollar. The shareholders in any business want more return on their dollar, and if you can get away with it, and they're still getting away with it in South America and some of those countries, they got away with it here for a while and got a good return. It was a luxury, but you know, the days of luxuries are gone.
Stay tuned now as we take a look into the future in Beyond 2000. It's followed by Wise Guy at 11 o'clock tonight, live with Steve Izard.